Hi ladies, good afternoon. It is Sarah Shipton here from Scrapbooking with Sarah, and I am coming live to you today on Tuesday, 25th of February 2025. How about all of those 2s and 5s in there? I'm a bit of a numbers girl, right? So that has to mean something, right? 2502 2025. I had to think about that for a second, right? Coming live to you today on Feb 25 for our last weekly scrapbooking challenge for February, and I have really enjoyed creating with this paper suite this month. We have been working with the paper suite from the January 2025 scrapbooking brochure, and we've been working with the Meant to Be scrapbooking workshop kit and also the Meant to Be paper suite. Hi Miss Sonia, how are you today? Thanks so much for joining us. It was lovely to have you at scrapbooking on Saturday. Nice to see you in person, but also nice to see you here on my live as well. So I've really enjoyed working with this paper suite this month, and I have to say, I'm going to be really honest with you because I love a little bit of transparency. I felt challenged when I first saw this scrapbooking brochure. We had it released to us as Stampin' Up! Demonstrators before Christmas. And when I saw it digitally, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with these bees? And so quite often we get a paper suite, which sort of, for me creatively, sometimes I feel like it pushes me a little bit out of my comfort zone and challenges me. But I do love that, right? I'm big on growth, big on personal development. And so I really enjoyed creating with this paper suite this month. Now, you will need to go back and watch one of my previous weekly scrapbooking challenges. You can do that via my YouTube channel, Scrapbooking with Sarah Shipton. And I actually showcase the 3 scrapbooking layouts from the scrapbooking workshop kit. So even though we had bumblebees, right, I still managed to find some photos. So this layout, I scrapbooked London. This layout, I scrapbooked a stopover in Singapore, and this layout, I also scrapbooked London. Now, would you even have thought for a second that you would be able to use this particular scrapbooking workshop kit to scrapbook some travel layouts? That was not my first thought. But once I prepped my kit and I had all of my pages laying out there and started going through my photos, that's a little tip for you. I always will look at my photos that I've already printed to try to scrapbook some photos that I already have here. Now, if I can't find something I've printed, then that's when I will use my Photos app on my device, my iPhone, and there is a search function in your Photos app. And so if I can't immediately think of photos that spring to mind that I'm going to scrapbook, so for example, next month's scrapbooking workshop kit, as soon as I saw that, I knew straight away what photos I was going to scrapbook. But this one here, I was a little challenged, right? So that's when I used the search function on my phone, and I searched obviously like bee, bumblebee, I searched yellow, I searched purple. So I will typically search keywords, and then what that does is it brings up all of my photos that would feature bees or bumblebees. In this case, I also searched flowers. I actually found some flowers, purple flower photos of us in London. This one here, I found some beautiful, again, purple photos with flowers, purple flowers, sorry. And that's how I came across Sky Garden. And then this layout here, funnily enough, there were some photos that I had taken in a hotel. It's called Yotel Air. And if anyone has stayed in a Yotel before, it's a hotel chain. There is like bright purple fluoro lights in the hotel rooms. So it's kind of like, it's a vibe, right? It's super funky. And my son and my husband and I stayed overnight in this hotel, and I remember walking in and the boys are like, what is going on here? So I don't know. I think it's designed for hotels where you're having like layovers in like airports and stuff maybe. And I honestly remember thinking how on earth am I going to scrapbook these photos, right? And it worked. So, you know, if you don't have photos that you've already printed, sitting at home that you can scrapbook, please use the search function in your Photos app, because I guarantee you, you will be able to find something. And in some instances as well, you know, you can see here we've got some bumblebee paper here. So in some instances with your designer series paper, this is a perfect example. I've got this large print of bumblebee, but on the other side, it's just like a generic, you know, crisscross pattern. Okay, so this is what I've got left over from my Cute as Can Be designer series paper. I think that's the same print. No, it's a different print. So, okay, so this bumblebee, we've got big bumblebees here with some pool party coloured wings. This one here, oh, and love hearts, the Petunia Pop love heart. This has got florals in the background. Okay, so on the back of this you've got a floral designer. So sometimes it might not necessarily be like the bee print, it could actually be the other colors that are on the back here. And so what I've tried to do with this week's scrapbooking challenge is give you some tips on using your designer series paper. So I've done a challenge which features you know, the pink and then the purple, so that's Bubble Bath and Petunia Pop. Obviously we've used lots of the bee paper just in the scrapbooking workshop kit alone, but then I really challenged myself to use some of the other colors, and in this instance I've gone with the honeycomb pattern in Old Olive. Again, you've got bumblebees on the back there again. So I like to really challenge myself to use the papers in different ways when I'm working with the weekly scrapbooking challenge. So let's talk about the pattern that I've used first. Then I'm going to talk about the layout, how that came together with the papers, and then I'm going to show you the technique for Technique Tuesday, which is ink distressing your cardstock. I love how this has turned out, and in fact I have to tell you, when I sat down to create the layout, I did this yesterday morning. I was running a little bit behind because I had workshops on the weekend. When I sat down and I've like stuck everything down, I'm like, oh my gosh, what is my technique? What am I going to teach this week? And I remember looking at my cardstock. I've opted for, this is Acorn cardstock, okay? Now, Acorn is a close to my heart color, but it is one of the closest or the comparison colors to the Stampin' Up! Range, where we are using Pecan Pie. So Pecan Pie is one of the colors which coordinates with Daffodil Delight. I'm going to give you some tips for that shortly. I remember looking at this sheet of paper and just thinking, oh my gosh, it looks so boring, like it looks so plain. Let me give you a before here. So this is two-tone, Acorn in two-tone. I didn't have any Pecan Pie cardstock on hand, and in fact, Pecan Pie is not one of the colors that Stampin' Up! Have yet released as a two-tone cardstock. The existing two-tone cardstock colors you will see in the front of your January 2025 scrapbooking brochure. And at the moment, we've only got these 10 colors in two-tone, but you will see the entire color range of Stampin' Up! Colors in two-tone come May of this year, okay? So I didn't have any Pecan Pie on hand, but I did have some Acorn on hand, and this is two-tone. So I have used the lighter side of my Acorn. You can see that this is the original color, and when I turn that over, I get a lighter side of that tonal paper. So I did go with the lighter side, and I remember sticking it down and thinking, oh my gosh, it just looks so boring. And look how much better it looks, guys. Or girls, I should say. I always go, hey guys. Look how much better it looks having this ink distressing on here, and the difference that really makes on the cardstock. So I'm excited to share this technique with you today. Let's talk about the pattern first. So I am working on pattern number 3, which is from volume 1, Make It From Your Heart book. This is a how-to pattern book that I had during my time as a maker with Close to My Heart. And I love these patterns because what you see here is a blueprint, or the layout. I like to call it a blueprint, and the reason being is that you can take this pattern and you can recreate it again and again and again simply by switching your papers out. So whether you are using plain colored cardstock, two-tone cardstock, designer series paper, pattern paper that you had during your time as a customer with me in Close to My Heart. You can take a layout that you love, just switch those papers out and recreate it again and again. And I know that quite often we come across a layout. In fact, one of the weekly scrapbooking challenges that I did for February, I think it might have been week 1. You can go back to my website and click on the My Projects tab, and that will bring up all of the previous weekly scrapbooking challenges we've done. I'm pretty sure it was week 1. I love that pattern so much, and that is definitely one that I would recreate again and again, and it just got so many photos on there. So that was definitely a favorite of mine. So pattern number 3 is on pages 10 and 11. I have loaded the pattern to our Facebook group, so you'll be able to recreate the pattern or the cutting instructions from there if you don't have a copy of this particular book, which is no longer available for sale. So with your layout instructions, you're going to need 2 base pages for your scrapbook layout. So that's in 12 by 12. I've opted for plain cardstock as my base, but you certainly could use pattern paper. And in fact, the thing I love about the Stampin' Up! Designer Series paper is you get so many sheets of paper. You get 12 sheets of paper in the pack. You've got 6 patterns on one side, and you turn over and you've got 6 patterns on another side. So there is so much versatility in their designer series papers, which I absolutely love. So I've opted for 2 sheets of plain cardstock. With my cutting, so we've got a large piece through the middle here where I've done this honeycomb old olive. So this piece here is going to match this strip of paper that's running down along the side here. So you are going to need only 1 sheet of pattern paper there. Now, why is A like that and D is, oh, I know why I've cut 2 sheets of paper here, because the way my pattern was going. So if you don't have a pattern that requires it to be vertically, so in this instance here, let me show you, I've got my honeycomb pattern here. So you can see here, if I turn it that way, the honeycomb pattern is kind of like thicker. If I turn it on the side, it's like a thinner, it's like a more narrow honeycomb. And so I wanted my patterns to match here, which means that I did actually have to cut, and that's why you see 2 sheets of paper here. This large piece through the middle here is cut at 7 by 11 inches. And then this piece running down the right hand side is cut at 2 inches. It's a 12-inch strip. Okay, that's why, depending on your pattern, obviously it's going to depend on your pattern. If you've just got like a generic pattern, then it won't matter so much. You could get away with just 1 sheet of paper here, but this is why I have used 2 pieces. And also here in the pattern here, I think it's the way that that pattern is particularly running. Okay, this is vertically, and then you want that same vertical pattern, except you need a whole 12-inch length of it. Okay, so that's this piece of paper here. The piece of paper running through the top, you can definitely just use 1 sheet of paper there, so whether that's cardstock or pattern paper. So you've got a piece running along the top here, which is 3.5. Well, the width is 3.5 for both pieces, but this piece here is shorter, cut at 10 inches. And then this piece here is a little longer, cut at 11 inches. And you can see I've got my base page here. I've got this 12-inch strip running down the edge, and then this piece of paper running through here is going to go down next, because then your strip running through here is going to go over the top of this pattern piece, but it's going to be flush up against the edge of these 2 pieces here. And you can see that quite clearly here in the pattern, so you could refer to the photos in our scrapbooking group for that. Now, this piece of paper running through here, I've opted to bring in another pattern. So we've got 1, 2, 3 different pattern pieces of paper here. And that is, again, running at the 12-inch length of the base page, but only 4 inches in width. And then you've got a perfect amount of room for some photos running through the width of this layout. So all of these photos are 3 by 3 inch in size, And then I have matted my photos at 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. And I have used old olive cardstock here to do the mats. You can see I've added a flip flap on top of this photo mat here. And then I have created my little journal box inside here. So quite often I like to do that. I like to have my photo on top, and then when you flip that out, there's another photo here, and then my little journal box here with the story, because the story, girls, you will hear me tell you this all the time. The two most important things on your layouts are your photos and your stories, because if you don't tell your story, no one else is going to tell it for you, and no one can tell your story as well as you can. So while you are here and you have the memory and the capability and the passion, please put your photos, please put your stories on your layouts with your photos. Because if I had just literally scrapbooked this layout and someone was to look at this, okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. One of the things I do love to do when I travel is I'm a little bit of a history buff, and so whilst this is not necessarily historic, I do love to take photos of signs. So obviously it's pretty self-explanatory. This is the cathedral in Litchfield National Park, where all the termite mounds are. And I had been to Litchfield National Park before in 2009, and I had seen these termite mounds, but my daughter had not. And she is actually the reason we took this trip. We don't really buy presents. We don't buy stuff. We like to do experiences. So her 20th birthday present was a return airfare to Darwin. Miss Kayla is actually on the video live today. Hi, Kayla. Do you remember your 20th birthday trip? Didn't we have so much fun? So there was a flight sale on the week of her 20th birthday. So her birthday present was a return flight to Darwin. And she really wanted to visit Litchfield National Park for their beautiful natural waterfalls and swimming holes. So I actually did a layout on that last week. And then I thought, oh my gosh, these photos are going to be so perfect for this layout. So whilst my story is pretty self-explanatory in the photos, I do love to include a journal box on my layout as well. And I've talked here about our little road trip into Litchfield National Park. This was our first stop, the termite mounds. We had a little bit of a preview here on the side of the road as we were driving towards where the termite mounds were. You could just literally see them right there on the side of the road. But the big showstopper is this termite mound here called the Cathedral. And it's just like completely mind-blowing to me that little ants... No, well, termites are not ants. Little termites have built like this big massive mound in the middle of nowhere, right? It's pretty impressive to see. And then, let's take this out of the memory protector. It's pretty impressive to see. And then you've got this hole like where they've actually built like a walkway around it, so you can get up close to it, but not too close that you are interrupting those little termites. So that is pretty much the pattern in terms of all of the cutting here with the photos. Oh, on this side here with my photos, this was meant to be space for a 3.5 by 3.5 photo, but you girls know how much I love to get as many photos on my layout that look, aesthetic and balanced. So instead what I've done here is I've switched that out with a 4 by 6 inch portrait photo. And then of course I had room to put another 4 by 6 inch portrait photo here, because this space was meant to be a title, or as you can see here, they've done quite this large embellishment piece through here. So instead I have opted for 2 portrait photos here, and because I had room through here, I've put another portrait photo. So for those of you that love the 4 by 6 inch photos on the layout, you guys are going to be really happy with this one. 4 by 6 inch photos means I've cut my mats at 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And because I have got pattern paper on pattern paper, then I have actually matted my photos using my Stampin' Dimensionals. And I don't even have a pack here on hand to show you, because I literally just finished. Oh, I've got the mini Stampin' Dimensionals. I just finished my Stampin' Dimensionals. So I have matted them with Stampin' Dimensionals just to lift the photos up off the pattern paper here. I've matted this one here. We've also done some stamping So documenting the day, and I did stamp that in Pecan Pie, which is a Stampin' Up ink pad. And I have used my Documenting the Day stamp set. Now, this is a free stamp set that you can earn during Celebration, which actually finishes this Friday, the 28th of Feb. In the Australian market, with an order of $100 or more, you can actually opt to get this stamp for free as one of your free gifts. And I've actually got another scrapbook layout I'm going to share with you at the end where I've used this stamp set. I love this because it's got big titles, which are great for scrapbookers, and you can mix and match your title up. So I've opted for Documenting the Day because I kind of felt like there is a little bit of a documentation vibe happening here with the signs in my photos, very much a documentation type scrapbook layout. You could mix this up and stamp What a Wonderful Day, Oh, what a day, One fine day, Oh, what a day in the sun, Documenting the day in the sun, What a wonderful day in the sun. You can really mix your titles around. So I did love that because it is quite versatile. You've got a perfect day, a little sun here. So I have stamped my sun. I will give you a tip. If you were using this stamp set, I kind of wish that I had stamped the sun like here and more like in the middle. And then I would have lifted that title up a little bit. I went to go and stamp a sun here next to it to make like a little bit of a title cluster here. But I had stamped Documenting the too close to this pattern paper here. And when I went to put the sun here, it wasn't going to be even. I would have liked to have had the sun here and then my title more in the middle. So that's just my little tip there for you with your titles if you're going to incorporate the sun into here. In terms of my embellishments, I have used leftover embellishments from my Meant to Be scrapbooking workshop kit. So these were the 3 layouts I was talking to you about earlier. You get a whole sheet of die cuts in this scrapbooking workshop kit, as you can see here. And you literally only use, I think it's like 3 flowers. You literally only use 3 flowers on one of those scrapbooking layouts for the kit. And so you've got all these leftover hearts and flowers. So I did punch out all of my Old Olive flowers, and you can see here they're 2 tones. So you've got Old Olive and then a lighter version of the Old Olive flower. And I've just popped some of them on my scrapbooking layout in little clusters using my mini Stampin' Dimensionals. And then of course the little tiny bead trinkets, which I could not get enough of. I've popped some of them on my layout here just near the flowers. And you are going to want some mini glue dots if you are using the tiny bead trinkets on your scrapbooking layout. So when it came time for me to choose the papers that I wanted to work with, I'm using the Cute as Can Be Designer Series paper, and I've actually coordinated it up with the Floral Delight Designer Series paper from my January mini catalogue. Okay, so I've taken the colours from this palette here. We've got Old Olive, and then we've got Pecan Pie, which is where I brought in the browns, and then of course Daffodil Delight from the floral paper. So in my video last week, I talked about using these designer series papers and coordinating it with the Meant to Be suite that I shared with you earlier from the scrapbooking brochure, and thinking of it as like a bit of a mix-in paper pack, because this Floral Delight paper suite does continue through till the end of April in the current mini catalogue. And so I really love that I'm going to be able to use these papers with the next 2 months paper suites that I'm going to be working with as well. In March, we're doing Everyday You and Me, and in April, we're going to be doing Storybook Life. So stay tuned for those. And for those of you that transitioned from Close to My Heart with me, then you will understand how I've used this as like a bit of a mix-in paper pack. I've taken another designer series paper, paired it with a current one I'm working on, and just mixed it in, right? You've just mixed it in. So let's get inky now, girls, and have a little bit of a play with the blending brushes here. So I had actually stuck down all of my papers onto the cardstock, and then I decided, oh, I'm going to do this blending technique. This is going to look so cool. And I love it because it gives it like a little bit of a distressed, dirty look. You know, even like a little bit of an old world heritage inky look. I think that's super cool as well. A really popular technique if you are working on heritage photos, a heritage album, a family history album, genealogy, that kind of thing, by ink distressing your cardstock in your paper. That does look super cool. So it does give it a little bit of a grungy. I didn't mean to say dirty. Before I was thinking grungy, but I said dirty. We don't want our scrapbooking to look dirty, do we, girls? No, we don't. So we are going to need, when you're doing this technique, my best tip for you is to coordinate the ink with the cardstock that you're using. Now, in this instance, I've got Acorn cardstock, as mentioned earlier, from when I transitioned with Close to My Heart. But Pecan Pie is the closest. Acorn is the closest match to Pecan Pie. Also toffee. If you've got any toffee cardstock around, then you can certainly use that. In terms of Pecan Pie cardstock, you can get 2 sheets of that in the Neutrals 12 by 12 cardstock assortment pack. That will coordinate up, or you could just sit tight and wait until we have some more of those 2-tone cardstock colors released. I do really love, though, the cardstock assortment packs in the back of your annual catalog, and being able to have a combination of all of the different Stampin' Up colors. It just means that you're only going to get 2 sheets of those colors, of each of the colors in your pack. So you're going to need your blending brush as well. I still obviously have got my Close to My Heart blending brushes because I had only invested in them not long beforehand. I have to say, I do actually have 3 packs of blending brushes, and you can get 3 packs of blending brushes with Stampin' Up if you've not yet invested in them, or you need more. And what I did was I actually put my blending brushes into color groups. So I've got my reds, pinks, purples, blues, greens, and yellows, and then my oranges, browns, grays, and blacks. Okay, so I did find that quite useful, and in fact, Stampin' Up have a fantastic organizer for the blending brushes. I do need to, I need to do a little bit of reorganization here in my craft space, girls, let me tell you. So we're going to grab our Pecan Pie ink pad up and our blending brush. We're going to open that up, and we're just going to slide that back into its home. Now, the one comparison for those of you that have worked with the inks with me before with Close to My Heart, the Stampin' Up ink pads are quite juicy and a little tacky, I will say, because the base is a foam. The ink pad is foam, whereas when we did this technique during our time with Close to My Heart, those ink pads are actually felt, so they're quite hard. And so what I have found with these is that you don't actually need to really rub into these ink pads. You can just tap on them, and if you're worried that it's going to be too inky, you might just want to have a little bit of scratch paper on hand to tap off some of that excess ink. Now, what I would recommend you do is to have some scratch paper just underneath your cardstock here to use as you're going over the cardstock. So now, if I had not stuck my papers down first, this is how I would have done it. But because I hadn't stuck because I'd already stuck my papers down and I didn't want to get too much ink on, I actually did tap into my ink pad and I just ran over the edges. So you certainly can do your technique like that. And in fact, I do see a lot of people do it in that way. So it really just gets nice and inky on those edges. There is no right, there's no wrong. You just do whatever you feel called to do, girls. I want you to do whatever you feel called to do, okay? So if you want to hold your paper up, you can see here I'm finding that a little tricky, and as I'm holding the paper, it's kind of bending and marking a little bit. So I'm actually going to pop that back down on my, oh yeah, see, I like that a lot better. I'm going to pop that back down on my cardstock, and I'm just dabbing that ink in here and going around the cardstock here. The other really cool thing is, because this is two-tone cardstock, if I was to tear this, let's do it. If I was to tear this tearing technique, right, you could actually tear your cardstock, and then you could do the ink distressing over the torn bit, or you could actually just leave it torn and you can just see your white core in there like so, okay? So it's really, again, whatever you feel called to do. There's no right, there's no wrong. Whatever works for you and your creative project. I do like this because I feel like you can get right into it when you do it this way. And, you know, the whole thing is that it's actually going to look, depending on how you're doing it and the technique that you're using, every time you do this, it's going to look different, right? So it's not meant to look perfect. It's meant to look distressed. It's meant to look grungy. I prefer to use less ink to get started with and then build it as I'm going, okay? Because sometimes I go boom, right down. I'm like, oh, that's too much ink. So whatever you feel is good for you. So I'm just going around the cardstock here. I like holding it because I feel like when you're blending off the edges here, you're really kind of getting into that edge of the cardstock, if that makes sense. And then I'm feeling a little lazy, so I'm going to put this down for a bit. Sometimes it's a mood, right, guys? Sometimes it's just a mood. So I'm just going to go around the cardstock here. So again, because I had already stuck down my papers, I had to hold it and just go lightly around the edges. But if you want to do it that way, that's okay. If you'd rather have some scrap paper down just to hold that in place, then that's okay too. I guess it depends how inky you want your cardstock base to be. Okay. So you can do this on your, you could do this on your photo mats. Like I could have gone around and inked. And when I said before about using, like, you know, the coordinating ink with the coordinating cardstock, I think that looks really cool with the base pages. But like if I had this as Old Olive, right, if I wanted to distress my cardstock mats with pecan pie on Old Olive, that's totally okay too, right? There's no right, there's no wrong. And some people like that. Some people like the kind of brown on the cardstock. Some people even use the black inks on the cardstock as well. Sometimes I feel that's a little bit too harsh for me personally. But like I said, you know, if one of my girls did that on their edges, you know, there's no judging here. I wouldn't be like, oh, I don't like that. It's just what you like in your albums, girls, okay? So you can see just by distressing that, oh, I do kind of like it. You can see where you've sort of done it flat on the edges here, and then when you've picked it up and done the ink on the actual cardstock itself. Okay. So as you can see, that's pretty much it in terms of the technique of using your blending brush around the outside there, and then also tearing with the white core, as you can see there with the two-tone. Now, if you were going to be doing the tearing technique with the Stampin' Up! Cardstock that you can purchase in the 12x12 cardstock assortment packs or in the A4 cardstock packs, that is not white core, and you will feel the difference because it's much thicker, okay, whereas the two-tone cardstock is lighter, and so it's obviously white cardstock, right, and then they dye it. So it's dyed on one side and then it's dyed on the other. So you will find that with some of the two-tone cardstock as well, girls, that you'll get a little bit of colour variation with the cardstock. And sometimes if the colour is lighter, on the lighter side, you can also almost see a little bit like white speckles It's not super obvious, but because the cardstock is dyed, then that's what that it's done that way, so you can get that white core. Okay, so you know, some people like that look, other people don't. It's really whatever you like. And you know, again, tearing cardstock is like a whole other technique, but it's pretty basic. You're literally just tearing your cardstock. I used to have like a tearing ruler as well, which also looked quite cool. It just depends what look you're going for. If you're going for like a distressed kind of grungy look, then tearing your cardstock looks awesome. You can see here I've just lightly inked around just the cardstock bit. I didn't do this colored bit on the edges. I literally just did the cardstock, and it just made such a difference to my layout, and I was really, really happy with how it turned out. So just wrapping up, I am going to show you another layout that I used the documenting the day stamp set on. I'm not actually sure. I can't remember if I've shared this layout. This was not a weekly scrapbooking challenge as such. And I do need to load this project onto my website. But this particular layout was actually created using papers from the Celebration booklet. So you can actually get this paper pack for free with a $100 order. And Celebration ends this Friday, 28th of February. So I actually used the papers, and then I also used the documenting the day stamp set. And you can see I've stamped What a Wonderful Day here. And then we've done some of the love heart stamping in first and second generation stamping. I then made a couple of cards with my leftover cardstock, and this is using the gorgeous Beautiful Butterflies bundle, which I did demonstrate last week. So this is the hybrid embossing folder. The die cuts are in here, and then there's also a coordinating stamp set. You can buy these items separately or as a bundle all together. So I've been able to cut out this beautiful butterfly, and in fact the butterfly came from here. When you run it through the hybrid embossing folder, it cuts and embosses at the same time if you use the die inside the hybrid inside the embossing folder. So I made this card with the butterfly cutout, and then I used the leftover cardstock to cut down over the top of the card, and then using the coordinating stamp, I've actually stamped on the inside here, and then I've cut out some of the other little butterflies from my hybrid embossing folder just to embellish on there, and stamped happy birthday. That's super cute, and this was also made with the leftover papers as well. So just a little bit of a tip there for you, and a last minute share about Celebration. This is my last Technique Tuesday for February. So I hope that has inspired you girls to get inky, try a new technique with your scrapbooking. I will post this video to our Facebook group. Now, you might recall that last week Facebook made some changes to their videos. Now, these videos will stay in our Facebook group for a 30-day time period only, after which time you will need to go to my YouTube channel. After I have posted this video to our Facebook group, I download it, and then I literally just upload the video to my YouTube. So they are there for you permanently to go back and watch. Thank you all for tuning in. Hi, Doreen. Nice to see you. Hi, Emily. Thanks so much for joining in. I hope that you are inspired to do some scrapbooking or card making this week, girls. Thanks for watching, and I will pop links in the comments below to all of the goodies that I have shared with you today. Enjoy your week, and I can't wait to see what you create. Bye for now.